I am back. You are indeed comfortably zoned with me. I am Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And as is my wont, I have two interesting guests who are baseball mavens. And better than that, they're Pittsburgh mavens, Pittsburgh Pirate mavens in particular, David Finoli and Al Blumkin. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. We're going to talk first. Dave, you've been here on these airwaves before, and you had a good time, and you were nice.
Oh, great.
Back.
Enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it when my guests have a good time and do enjoy it, and they express it when they do come back. That makes me happy to hear, and I'm doing something right. Dave, you have a book that you want to talk about that isn't all baseball, and am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right. I have next month. I have the second edition of my Penguins Top 50 Games coming out, which will have a nice section on the 2017 Stanley Cup title. The dream book I've always wanted to do was a book on the top 50 teams in Western Pennsylvania history, and the fine people at the History Press have allowed me to do that, which will be out in November, or actually end of October of this year.
Beautiful. That's got to be very exciting for you. How did you come about to write the book in the first place? What was did somebody come to you and say that would be interesting, or where did the idea hit?
Well, actually, in the early '90s, I was really starting to get into the internet, and I had always wanted to put together a definitive list of every champion that had come through Western Pennsylvania. I figured, to me, it sounded like, and I wanted to do this at the collegiate level and above. And I thought this would be something that would take me 2 weeks. Well, it ended up taking me about 20 to 22 years, and I'm still not done with it. It's still every day. I have a great guy who was a co-author on a book on the 1955 national champion Duquesne Duke team with me, who has just added, came up with new champions that he would find. And it's just been a labor of love. So probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
Did you say Sayugo Green?
Absolutely. Sayugo's a huge part of that book. That book came out last December. I'm a Duquesne grad and wanted to remind the alumni, just how great Duquesne's history was.
He was a player. I wonder why he didn't do better in the pros than he did. Can you give me some?
The only thing I can see about that, he was a tremendous athlete. He was what I would consider a modern day athlete way before his time. Back then, I'm doing some research, some pre-research for a biography on Chuck Cooper, a Duquesne grad and first African-American player to play in the NBA. And basically a lot of what I come across, which would have affected Sayugo Green, who played relatively not long after he did in the NBA. They were not ready for the African American at that point, and a lot of what I find is really didn't make them the focal point of the offenses.
I think that had of that, yeah. They could an unwritten law that they could have two blacks on each team. The Celtics changed that, but for a long, long time. That was the case, and
exactly.
A lot of guys didn't get playing time.
Right. They didn't get the playing time. They weren't the focal point of the offense, and quite frankly, I think we see incomplete careers for these guys in the NBA. Which certainly, we'd like to get Chuck Cooper into the Hall of Fame, and that's one thing that kind of makes it difficult. It's tough to look at their NBA stats and be definitive that this is a guy who was among the all-time greats. But I think Cy Hugo and Dick Ricketts, who played with him, ended up being a pitcher with the Cardinals, had a major league career with them. But they were the two best ball players in the country, and back-to-back, the only time one school has had back-to-back first picks in the NBA draft. But they both kind of suffered the same thing.
Yeah, I didn't realize Dick Ricketts didn't remember him in the NBA.
Yeah, he played there for a few years before he ended up going with the Cardinal organization.
Well, a two-sport player, and we must pay homage to a fellow not from Pittsburgh, but very famous two-sport player, Gene Conley, passed away this past week. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was 86.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Sad that he's gone. And Al Blumkin, you were quite amusing on Facebook. You mentioned something about Pumpsy Green. You were wondering, was that you who mentioned that? Perhaps I...
About Puckett?
Yeah,
I put down, I'm still wondering how he went from 0 to 31 home runs in 2 seasons.
Yeah, okay. That, that's quite a thought. Who is your favorite Pittsburgh, Dave, Penguin hockey player? And it doesn't have to be a great one. I'll tell you who mine was. It was Stan Gilbertson.
We spoke about him last time. Yeah, you had known him in Oakland. Yeah.
I did. Wow, you have a good memory. Thank you. I appreciate that. Somebody pays attention to my babble.
There you go.
That's kind of nice. Who was yours?
I would basically say Jean Pronovost, who was the franchise's first 100-point scorer, their second 50-goal scorer. He was their first star. He was, if I'm not mistaken, taken the year after they began from the Boston organization. And he was a guy, that you kind of rooted for as a kid, as the team really stunk as I was growing up. I would always say he was my favorite, but certainly the last 2 years, this team, which in January of 2016, everybody was about to put the blanket over him and declare the Penguin championship era over. So a lot of the guys, scrappy guys on this team that Jimmy Rutherford put together certainly would qualify as favorites, probably the most being Chris Kunitz, who just enjoyed a great career with Pittsburgh, scored the winning goal in the Eastern Conference Final in overtime, Game 7 this year. And, I would say he's probably my modern favorite.
Okay, may I ask, did John Pronovost play with the Red Wings at one time?
His brother Marcel did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I used to go down for autographs. I mean, it was 6 teams, and they'd come in 5 or 6 times a year, and we'd meet them at the hotel on the way to the Garden and what have you.
Yeah.
And I have is there an Andre Pronovost as well?
I believe there might have been. That name sounds familiar.
Okay, because I have a card. They used to put pictures, the players did, on picture postcards and give them out and autograph for them. And I'm just, as we speak, looking through my collection, and I've got an Andre Pronovost, probably the third brother, signed an autograph to me back.
There you go.
So, hockey, Al, you were a big fan of hockey when it was 6 teams.
Yeah.
Express how it was.
Basically, I root for Pittsburgh teams, even though I don't follow it that closely. I put up in there's a Facebook group which is mainly Pittsburgh. It's called Neighborhood Sports Bar. I put up when they won the Stanley Cup. Again, I did the same thing last year. I'm very happy. I don't follow hockey much, but I'm happy for all my Pittsburgh friends that the Penguins won the Stanley Cup. I've done that each of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Nice. David, may I ask you what it is for a writer when they complete a work, and is there almost a come down? In other words, the work is done, you put so much into it, especially towards the end of a production. What's it like? How do you get on to your next project? Do you have a project in works before you finish the one you're completing? And how do you handle the transition as a writer?
Well, I mean, myself, I do have probably about 5 or 6 things I always have in mind. And especially this one was, as I said, this to me was like the dream book. So this one, yeah, there was quite a come down after, because you're so keyed up while you're writing it, so keyed up doing the research and just living those memories again. And, so there was a particular come down on this one. And then, probably about 5 or 6 months pass. I haven't seen the pages yet, but when those pages come, all of a sudden you really start getting pumped up again. And, the best day is when you get that box of the books that the publisher sends you. And, that's just at that point in time, you get really excited and proud of the work you had just completed. But basically what I do.
Do you have a shelf in your library where you put all your books? And
I do. I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and usually I take about a month off in between projects, give myself a little chance to unwind, and then I start trying to sell the next one.
You're totally freelance. It's like the Old West, in a lot of ways. Do you enjoy that, or do you miss the structure of a working environment?
Well, I'm a manager in retail for the Kohl's Company, which is a wonderful organization to work for. So I'm lucky that my financial and benefit needs are taken care of through there. So I have never had a really structured writing career, and I kind of like it that way. I was a journalism student at Duquesne. Didn't really enjoy the structured life as much. Whereas here, I'm able to pick and choose what I want to do. And when I write a book, I want to be really excited about what I'm doing. I don't want somebody to tell me what the next 225 pages of my life is about to be. Because to me, that would become work. That I would probably get burned out on. I mean, right now I've been lucky enough to put 23 books out in 15 years, and I don't know that if it wasn't doing the method I do, that I would really be interested in anywhere near that amount.
What was your first book?
It was on baseball in World War I. It was called For the Good of the Country. It was the only book I ever wrote that wasn't specifically about Pittsburgh sports. And I just had the honor of speaking to men like Bob Feller, Hugh Mulcahy, who I had some correspondence going back and forth.
You mean World War II, right? World War II. You said World War I.
You said World War I.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant World War II.
Yeah, I have the book.
I apologize.
I have it,
Oh, great. That's great. And I mean, it was just an honor for me to do that book. And McFarlane Publishers did it and just allowed me the freedom to develop it any way I'd like. And I'll tell you that still I have letters from some of those guys, and most of whom have passed since the book was written. And Bob Feller, I always like to tell the story. He was a great pitcher. He was a great war hero, but he was a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. And he called my wife up, and because I sent them all letters asking them, kindly, would you be interested in talking with me? Please, let me know at your convenience. And he called up and he asked my wife, who's this person who thinks he's an author named David Finoli? So my wife shoots back at him, and they get into a little argument. He finally talks to me. He's giving me one-word answers left and right. I asked about his military career. He goes, read it in this book if you want to know about that. So finally, I'm running out of things to ask him because, I've asked him 20 questions. I've gotten 21-word answers. And so finally I asked him, you pitched to Josh Gibson. What was that like? All of a sudden he turned into
what a question.
Oh, man, he was like a completely different man. Went on and on for the next 2 hours talking about the Negro Leagues.
Oh, wow.
And I'll never forget what he told me about Josh Gibson. I've used that quote in just about every Pirate book I've done, especially when I'm talking about the potential of, that the Pirates had to sign some of these guys that they didn't take advantage of in the 30s. And he always said Josh Gibson would have been a good hitter, but not a great one because he never could touch a curveball. And that just always hit me that, we've always read all these things, but here's the guy that actually pitched to this man. And he found a flaw that obviously others didn't have who pitched to him didn't have the weapons to, dominate him as Bob Feller did.
Hey, let's fill people in on how I know they did barnstorming, but tell the audience, if you would, Dave, what that was about. It came after the season.
It came after for the white major leaguers who would play the Negro League players. That's how they made a good chunk of their money. They would go to these different games, and the different cities would set them up, and the players would keep the bulk of the promoters would probably get the bulk of the money, but the players would make a decent amount of money doing this from town to town. The Negro Leagues, if you look at the stats, the official Negro League stats, there are sometimes 20 to 40 games in a regular season. So these guys would make quite a bit of their money going town to town throughout the whole year, playing teams from the town, playing other Negro League teams and exhibitions. And again, this is how they would make their money, going town to town, having these exhibitions. And when they would have it against the white major leaguers, they were wars. White major leaguers were trying to prove they didn't need them in the majors, and the African Americans were trying to prove that they not only belonged, but they were better. And from a lot of things,
they would pretty much play the white players even up.
In fact,
from all
a little
accounts.
advantage. Yeah, from all accounts I've read, they had a little advantage against them.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't much of one. I mean, it was basically even, but from all I read, they had the slight advantage in the games played.
Now, I heard something the other day that the Pittsburgh, that the Homestead Grays were from Pennsylvania, but they played in Washington at, they played for Calvin Griffith. Why was it that they didn't play in Pittsburgh?
That actually happened during the war. They played there's a little steel town right, you're about a mile outside of Pittsburgh. There's a little steel town named Homestead. They actually played their games in Forbes Field. When the Crawfords had the first stadium owned by the Negro Leagues, owned by their owner, Gus Greenlee. They played there for a couple of years, but they had played most of their successful years at Forbes Field. During the war, when times were a little tough back home, they made more money playing going to Washington and playing in Griffith Stadium. They would still play some in Forbes Field, but again, it was a financial thing. They knew by kind of spreading things out, they could make more money, and that's what that was all about. They were called the Homestead Grays for a little bit, and then I think towards the end they were called the Washington Homestead Grays.
Ah, okay. I never heard that. And I'm surprised to learn that they only did the Negro Leagues like 40, 50 games a year, you say.
In their official stats, they would play hundreds during the year.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Anybody in who came up? Who was the first Pittsburgh black player?
He was, oh God, the name is escaping me. It was in the 50s. Al, do you remember him?
Was it Roman
infielder in the
Mejias?
50s? No, it was not.
Okay. Al?
It was not.
Are you still with us, Al?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any idea who that might be?
No, not really.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, he was an infielder in the 1950s. He was not very good.
Which one is this?
The first African American. The name is
Kurt Roberts. Yeah.
Kurt Roberts. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, for a second I was shocked.
Yeah.
Now I realize Al is going to have the answer literally.
Yeah, from those years I know him more.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys want to tell the story again? How Branch Rickey, when he left the Pirates, because we've heard it. Is there anything we don't know on how he got to Clemente out of the Dodger organization? What was the story there?
Well, basically, go David.
No, I'm saying go
Okay.
ahead. You told that last time. You did a great job.
Clemente was in the Dodger system, and he was at Montreal in 1954. And after he showed what he was made of, they played him very sparingly, once every maybe 3 games. And he was just 19 years old, 19 and 20 years old. He was very, very upset. And they were doing it because there was a provision in the major leagues that lasted from 53 to 57. Any bonus player signed for above $4,000 would have to, I think it was 4,000, maybe a little higher, was subject to having to be on the roster of the major league team for 2 years without being able to be optioned. And of all the ones who were signed under this provision, the only 3 that really turned out to be any good were Sandy Koufax, Al Kaline, and Armand Killebrew. But basically, so the Pirates supposedly didn't want Clemente put on the roster and have to sit around for 2 years. So the Dodgers, so the Pirates had the first pick in that draft from finishing a very, very bad last the year before, and Clyde Suckerforth, who was better known for being the go-between between Jackie Robinson and Branch Rickey. Clyde Suckerforth had come over after 1950 with Branch Rickey, and he was one of the Pirate coaches and scouts. And he saw Clemente in the Winter League and said, "You got to take this guy if he's available." So I took him, and the rest is history.
Nice. Quite a coup.
Yeah.
And he kept putting that team together. Dick Groat, you had an interview with Dick Groat.
Yeah, that's 32 years ago already.
Wow.
Yeah,
Groat. Fast, gentlemen.
Yeah, Groat was, I interviewed him when he came in with the Pitt basketball team to play St. John. I set up a couple of weeks before when they were to play Seton Hall. And Grote was signed by Ricky. Grote was an All-American basketball player and one of the top college basketball players in the country when Ricky signed him. So Ricky signed him, and he goes right to the major leagues because, they were desperate. And he played 26 games with the Fort Wayne Pistons in that off season. Then he went to the Army.
I actually have 11 points a game in that short.
Yeah, 11.9. In fact, when he came in for one of the Big East tournaments, I gave him a box score I got out of his file in Cooperstown where he got 26 points in a game against the Knicks. And this is pre-24-second clock. So, anyway, when he went into the Army, he was in the Army in 1953 and 1954. He came out. He wanted to play both. He told me basketball was his first love. And he brought up Gene Conley to Ricky. Ricky said, well, Conley is a pitcher. You're going to play 150 games a year for us. And you're going to play 45 minutes a game for them if you play. So Conley was a pitcher and a backup in basketball, so you'll never be able to do it. Even though these seasons back then didn't overlap, Grote told me he went with baseball because that's where the money was.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
That really shows you how little money there was.
Oh, yeah.
Basketball. It doesn't show you how much money there was in baseball because, boy, the pendulum had not yet swung. And
when he was when he played in the NBA, the only two players basically ever getting paid any sort of real money were George Mikan and Bob Cousy.
Yeah. It actually, I was just watching a documentary on the Celtics and Lakers. It wasn't until Jordan really until the NBA found itself off tape delayed games and started paying its athletes what they probably deserved.
Yeah, well, basketball now is higher paid than anything, even baseball, because they sell the rights to China, to Europe, to Brazil. They send the rights all over the place. And there's a lot more coming in. You're also dealing with much smaller rosters, and essentially you're dealing with the colleges as a farm system.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a huge controversy erupting right now on, whether they want to continue the one or done situation between the colleges and the NBA. Of course, I have a feeling the NBA is going to want things as status quo, but it should be interesting coming up in the next collective bargaining.
Yeah, that is interesting because colleges really college coaches put in a very tough position with the one and done. How do you use a kid? Yeah. And what coaching can he possibly get to be NBA ready skill-wise? You can have the talent, you can have everything, but if you can't learn to pass the ball, to catch the ball properly, there's all kinds of things that go into it. And we the fan, get screwed because we're not seeing the final project.
Right.
The project, the final product.
Right.
And oftentimes the team that signs a player, especially in the one and done, he comes out a raw pro. It takes 4 or 5 years to develop, and by that time, he's gone one way or the other for the free agency, this, that, and the other thing. So it's always the fan that ends up losing, and I don't know what to say. I do want to remember to ask you, Dave, because he was so good with the Steelers, and he lived in a town in Northern California close to where I live, Pittsburgh, California. And his name was John Henry Johnson.
John Henry Johnson. He was a cannonball going through the line, just a rough tumble, very very well-remembered runner in Pittsburgh for 3 years in the early 60s when Pittsburgh had some not great teams, obviously never made the playoffs. They made something called the Playoff Bowl, which is where the second place teams would play an exhibition game in Miami. But Johnson was our first 1,000-yard rusher. I believe he did it twice in a Pittsburgh uniform. But we had never had a 1,000-yard rusher before John Henry Johnson, and just was I mean, in the clips I've seen of him, just fun to watch, ripping people through the middle. Just a strong runner, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was part of some great teams with the 49ers.
Yeah, they had a great offense. 49ers had Wyatt Tittle, the two running backs were John Henry Johnson. The halfbacks supposedly were, back in those days, were John Henry Johnson and Hugh McElhaney, and the fullback was Joe Perry. They actually have four-man backfield, and the problem with those 49er teams is the defense wasn't very good, and they never made it to an NFL championship game with that alignment.
Well, they combined in the early 60s with Bobby Lane, the old Lions quarterback, and it was short of 1947 when they played the Eagles in the Eastern Conference one-game playoff. That was the only successful time for the Steelers until 1972.
Yep. Bobby Lane used to frequent the place where me and my friends hung out, fairly frequently, called Gustine's.
Oh, yeah.
Bobby Lane used to take over the private back room there all the time.
Oh, man. he sounded like he was a personality.
Oh, yeah.
Kenny Stabler reminded me of Bobby Lane. And they both had the expression, they'd miss on the throw, they'd say, well, high ball drinker, low ball thrower.
There you go.
They had this one and alike, their spirit. Both of them, rest in peace. Wow, that's
yeah.
We lose our heroes much too soon. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
David, I have both your books. I bought when they came out, both on the 50 Greatest Pirates of All Time, and you did also the Pirates by the Numbers uniform book, right?
Absolutely. That was
I have them both.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, Alan.
The 50 greatest pirate games, and I have the last edition of the Pirates Encyclopedia, which my good buddy Jim Halley uses a lot.
Well, that was the second book we did, the first edition, and I was so excited that they became relevant again, and Sports Publishing Inc. wanted us to do a second. And hopefully, knock on wood, we'll figure this out here and become, I think,
I think you got it pretty well figured out. 23 books in 15 years. I'm speaking for myself. I haven't read 23 books in 15 years.
David, do you know Jim Halley very well?
Through Facebook, yes.
Yeah, began to bat him, really.
Yeah, he just basically seems like a great knowledgeable. If I'm not mistaken, he works at does some volunteer work at the History Center.
Yeah,
just a fun guy.
I met him only once when they had the 1995 Sabre Convention in Pittsburgh. And by the way, I don't know if you're aware of it.
Yeah,
the 1995 Sabre National Convention in Pittsburgh. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but I just finished going to the one here, and the 2018 Sabre Convention is going to be in Pittsburgh.
I hope you're coming down.
I'm going to try.
Well, listen, gentlemen,
that's good to hear, Al. That's good to hear that you're looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to meeting you next year in person, Al.
Okay.
All right. But, now, what are we going to do? We have to have a Ralph Tyko convention out in California to get you guys to come out to me.
There you go. So, you put it together, we'll make it out there.
Okay, gotcha. For you, Dave, just anything you want. because you're a hook to one of the most underrated sports cities in the country. You have it all. You have hockey. You had basketball. You had the Pittsburgh Wrens, at one time, and you had
ABA team.
Brown from
they had the ABA team that won the first year of that league.
The Pipers with Connie Hawkins. Absolutely. Which is going to be included in
Did Roger Brown play with Connie Hawkins, or did Roger Brown play against Connie Hawkins? Against.
They play against each other in high school.
As well.
Connie Hawkins played for Boys High and in Brooklyn, and Roger Brown played for Wingate in Brooklyn. And Roger Brown was primarily on the Indiana Pacers in the ABA, and Connie Hawkins left Pittsburgh when he wanted to suit against the NBA and went to the Phoenix Suns.
Absolutely. He played with the Rams and enjoyed his time here.
David, I just want to
hear you. The guy that went to Wingate, started with the Pittsburgh Pirates, went on to the Yankees, Willie Randolph, and then managed the Mets. He went to Wingate High School as well.
Yeah, David, one question. When you're doing this book on Pittsburgh championships, are you including the Pitt football team championships?
Oh, all of them will be there.
Okay, even in college.
Basically, what the book encompasses is anything from the college level above.
Okay.
Even the Cal women's basketball team that won the Division II championship is going to be have a spot in that book too.
Okay, I hope I'm around to see the day that the Pirates had to 1979.
Me too. But I was just mentioning that to a friend of mine who decided not to go see the Stanley Cup, and I looked at him and I said, you know what, 1979, I made that mistake of not going to the Pirate Parade, thinking there would be many more coming up, and I could kick myself every day because there has not been one. Since then. So, anyway, gentlemen, I do have a meeting coming up. We're gonna.
We've got to close it out. Al, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Finoli, I hope you'll continue to come back and let us know how you're doing and what next you have coming up.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have a lot of fun doing that. I'm so happy you allow me to come on here, and anytime you want, I will be more than happy to talk with you guys because I have a lot of fun doing it.
Beautiful.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen. Till next time, I implore you all to keep on keeping on.
Ralph, we're on Sunday night?
We are indeed.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
See you guys. Be well.
You guys take care. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.